Hello, everyone. I wanted to, first of all, welcome you guys out here. For those who don't know me, my name is James Johnson, and I've been involved in the cannabis space or involved in the cannabis space since 2016. And from time to time, I come out here and I actually shoot my Hemp 101 seminars again, to kind of give some updates, some perspective, and just some things that I've learned over the years from being with this or within the space and wanted to do the same thing. The last time I shot one of these was August of last year. So it's been, over a year. I apologize for taking so long to get around to it, but life has a tendency to kind of get in the way. Things come up in this space, and I want to make sure that I fully understand them, before I put information out there for you guys. So with that being said, we're going to dive right into some Hemp 101. And, warn you guys ahead of time, this is not going to be quick. Okay. You cannot cover this entire industry within 30 minutes, like most people expect me to do when they want me to come out and talk about cannabis. It's just not going to happen. Sorry, spoiler alert. I'm letting you know that up front. But this is something that you can actually, sit, watch from your phone, whether you're in the bathroom doing things, whether you're driving, got your Bluetooth on, being safe. This is something that you can watch, pause, watch time and time again. This is your Christmas present directly from JJ. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And with that said, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive straight into it here to kind of give you guys some information. So first of all, anyone who ever needs to contact me, here's my contact information. This is also my consultation page as well. If you have questions for me, please feel free to reach out via my email address there at the bottom and get with me. Let me know what questions you have. If it's something quick I can answer, cool, no problem. But if it's more detailed, we may have to get into some consultation. And guess what, guys? Consultation comes with fees. Surprise. But like I said, I try to get a good bit of information to you guys, pro bono, free of charge, just kind of make sure that people are, operating safe, within this space. Now, with that being said, I truly believe this quote, in my heart of hearts. In the times of crisis, the wise build bridges, while the foolish build barriers. We must find a way to look after one another as if we were part of one single tribe. I truly feel like those are the times that we're in right now within the cannabis space because there's just so much going on, so fast, lack of regulations, lack of understanding the regulations as they come out, and it makes it difficult for people to make decisions. So that's why my seminar exists, guys. It exists so that you guys get some information. You can walk away from it without having to purchase anything, and then make the decisions that are right for you and your business model, no matter which avenue you decide to go, which within the cannabis space. So with that being said, here is an overview of what's going to be discussed today. I start off with a little bit of my background. I talk about rules and regulations a little bit. I give a cannabis overview, a fiber overview. I talk about testing. Something new that I incorporate is called I don't want to pee hot. I wanted to use another word instead of pee, but I wanted to be politically correct as much as possible, despite the fact I curse every now and then. Something might slip out. Oops, apologize ahead of time. Also, some lessons learned as well as a few tips. So we're just going to kind of dive straight into it here. So with that being said, guys, there's me in all my glory. I joined the Air Force in July of 1995. And when I first joined the Air Force, I joined as a medical laboratory technician. It was a great time. I learned a lot. So I come, to this space with a medical background and understanding how testing works, prior to ever entering, the cannabis space. I was a drill sergeant for 5 years or a military training instructor within the Air Force. From there, I came back medical for 4 years. And then around 2010, 2011, I cross-trained to actually be a flight engineer on C-130 aircraft. So I made an unheard of transition going from medical, over to aviation. And that's what I did, my last 6.5 years. The reason these guys' face are blurred out, it's not because I'm ashamed of them in any way. They're still serving, out there on active duty in harm's way. And I want to make sure I protect them as much as I can. And that's the only reason for me covering up their faces, because I don't want anyone to know who they are, but they know who they are and they know that they're great people to me. So like I said, my last, 6.5 years, flight engineer on C-130 aircraft. And then I actually retired from the Air Force after 21 years in 2016. And that kind of began, my journey in the cannabis space. It's no secret that, the first couple of months after I retired were pretty rough. PTSD was kind of kicking my butt. And a buddy of mine reached out to me who I had a lot of trust with. And he said, hey, because I retired in Oklahoma. And he said, hey, I want to start an organization here to help farmers get the permits to be able to grow hemp because the Department of Agriculture wanted them to grow it. Farmers wanted to grow it, but there was nobody in the middle to help the farmer figure out the rules and regulations. So he wanted to put together an organization to help people figure out those rules and regulations. And he said some words to me. He said, I need somebody to have my back while I do this. And on that particular day, he did me the biggest favor possible when he said, have my back, because that snapped me out of my funk. It gave me a reason to exist. It gave me, people to serve. So I started going, trying to help them figure out this process. And as we were, approaching farmers about growing hemp, the first thing that they said was, I ain't growing that stuff. That's the devil's lettuce, JJ. We ain't growing that stuff here, and they fundamentally didn't understand the difference between hemp and marijuana. So it caused me to start to put together PowerPoints, teaching them certain things. And those PowerPoints for me teaching them are what evolved into my Hemp 101 seminar that I actually do today. And in 2018, I actually founded, JJ Grow Enterprises, which is actually my consultation umbrella, for my services and things that I offer and the connections that I make. Just helping people, figure out this space and do it legitimate, do it safe, and minimize, risk along the way. When it comes to my seminar, I've taught my seminar, all over the United States. I travel different locations. I teach it. I have a great time doing so. I actually taught my seminar at Texas A&M College Station. They wrote me a nice letter of support, for my seminar. This was me out there with their students from the industrial hemp breeding program, being silly, having a good time. It was amazing, an amazing opportunity. And the guys at Texas A&M College Station, they are truly doing great things, within the cannabis space. That led to another opportunity not too long ago as well. I was actually asked by the Comal County Bar Association to actually come and teach my seminar to attorneys, teaching them the difference between hemp and marijuana and talking about some key points to help, with upcoming clients and things like that. So that was awesome to do that for them. This picture right here, I was more nervous than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs, because at the time when I took this picture, I was actually in the Comal County courthouse, courtroom number 2. I didn't even know if it was okay for me to take this picture, when I took it. But it was a great time. We passed on a lot of information. It was about 15 attorneys. And it was a great opportunity, to let them know some additional facts about the hemp plant or cannabis in general that they were not aware of before. So I, love having the opportunity to do things like that. Me, myself, I co-own a CBD brand called Active Duty RX. You guys can go look that up, for yourself at www.activedutyrx.com. This is a line that is specifically for PTSD, anxiety, depression, and it's for first responders, law enforcement members, anyone who has a problem with passing drug tests. Our products will not cause you to fail a drug test. They're THC free, verified, and tested. There are no detectable levels of THC in these products. And this is kind of perfect transition for some of the things that we're going to talk about. Here's an example, of our product line. But the thing that I love about this is me, myself, and this is one of my labels, right? And I put at the top, quality matters, because that's a true statement. When you're purchasing products within the cannabis space or within the CBD realm, if that product, as you see over there on the right-hand side, it's got a QR code in that red square. If that product that you're purchasing does not have a QR code, don't buy it. I'm just going to say it straight. I don't work for anyone, guys. So the information, the things that I say, I'm literally standing, on the pinnacle of this mountain by myself saying them. I'm not saying them because I work for someone. I'm just letting you know this because I want to keep you safe. And if you're out there purchasing products that do not have a QR code on it, you're messing up. Because when you scan this QR code, it kind of actually leads to the report card on that product that you're holding in your hand to tell you the quality and quantity of cannabinoids within that product, versus relying on what the person behind the counter of the gas station says, who barely knows anything about these products at all. You need to be able to go look at, the facts. And if you are a member of law enforcement, you are a first responder, if you're active duty military, nurse, firefighter, things like that, over there to the far right, that circle where it says third party tested, THC free, verified, that is something that you guys want to look for, because there are no detectable levels of THC in this product. And we talk drug testing a little later, you'll understand where I'm coming from with that. So just wanted to give you guys an idea about that. This photo here is pretty pivotal. It was pretty awesome. One day I was actually teaching my seminar at Premise Medical Center, which is a prominent medical center in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, where they actually do the initial screenings and the return to work physicals for Department of Transportation drivers. Companies like Hertz, Swift, Penske, all the big guys, they go to them to screen their drivers for drug testing and things like that. And Steve Farrar, he's the actual owner, one of the owners of the clinic. And when I was teaching my seminar to his people, they were like, yeah, man, this CBD stuff is awesome. We wish more of our people could take it, but they can't because they're going to fail drug testing. I'm like, no, they're not. And he's like, yeah, but they'll fail, CBD, that they could still fail drug tests. I'm like, no, they won't. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you. Do me a favor. Go get me a cup. So I had him go get me one of their cups for providing urinalysis. And I actually gave them an on-the-spot urinalysis. And I also gave them a hair follicle sample as well, because I had my own products in my system for 4.5 years straight, right? And I know my products are THC free. So I randomly gave them urinalysis as well as hair follicle on the spot. They had to shave my armpits because I don't have enough hair on my head, right? They had to shave my armpits. And here are those drug testing results, guys. So right here, as you can see, if you look at the bottom, and I'm going to use my little pointer here, just kind of point out a few things. This is the actual sample that they did, was called a 5-panel on the hair, okay? And right here are the 5 things that they actually tested for. And one of the 5 things that they tested for was marijuana. And as you can see here, the result, negative, drugs detected, none. Because like I said before, there are no detectable levels of THC in that product. Now, the next slide that you're looking at here, this was actually the 10-panel test, okay? The 10 panels, what they did on the urinalysis. And when they test for the 10 panel, they test for the same 5 things as a 5 panel, but they also add 5 more, as you can see. But one of the things that they test for right here is marijuana. And as you can see right here, results negative, drugs detected, none. So if I myself can actually own a CBD brand that's been in my system for 4.5, 5 years straight, and I randomly go in and take a urinalysis and a hair follicle test and pass with flying colors, I think the average person is pretty safe with taking my products. Now, I'm not speaking for everybody's products. I'm only speaking for mine, because there is a difference between something on the label that says THC free, verified and tested, versus something that says 2018 Federal Farm Bill compliant. If it says 2018 Federal Farm Bill compliant, there are still detectable levels of THC in that, and you could get in trouble with your employer if it's someone who's worried about drug testing. So just wanted to put that out there for you guys so you'd have an idea. I also have a Veterans Benefit Form. This is a Facebook page that I operate for veterans. I do a lot to help veterans figure out the VA process in terms of getting established with the VA and how to file for their disability claims. I don't work for the VA at all, guys. I'm just a veteran who cares about other veterans, and I do this for my fellow brothers and sisters because someone has to do it. So that's what that's about. I'm also partial owner of a medical marijuana grow in Oklahoma called High Country Cannabis as well. So I'm quite familiar, with both sides of this thing. This is me actually doing some wonderful defoliating in our indoor grow. So just, wanted to, give you guys an idea there. I actually was the owner, one of the owners of Veteran Scientific Laboratories in San Antonio, Texas, which was actually a cannabis testing laboratory where we were actually registered with the DEA for handling controlled substances. And there was our actual license with the DEA, and it's expired because unfortunately in December of last year, we had to close the doors because there just wasn't enough business coming in to support the business model. So we had to shut it down. But like I said, I was quite proud of that accomplishment to be able to actually open a cannabis testing laboratory and provide a lot of information and help people understand a lot of things in this industry. It was an honor to be a part of that and do great things, while we were serving in that space. But that set me up for some amazing opportunities that actually set me up to be able to go to Texas A&M College Station, have some credibility, to brief these attorneys, with the Bar Association and things like that. It was an amazing opportunity. So I totally love what happened during that time. So with all that said, guys, we are going to transition, and I always start off my seminar by snitching. I jokingly say that because the U.S. actually owns a patent on cannabis, and there's the patent number right there. You can go look it up with yourself, see what it's all about, read it for yourself. So when the federal government says to you, we need to do more research, okay, well, how do you guys have a patent already, but yet and still we need to do more research? It's just one of those things for you to think about. I'm not out here to bash the government at all, in any way whatsoever, but I'm here to, give facts and let you guys go make up your mind based on factual content versus the rumor mill. So this is a fact. That patent is a fact. Go look it up, see what it's about for yourself. And another thing that I like to do when I do my seminar, I actually like to put the pages from certain things in here versus typing something out, because whenever you type something out, you have a tendency to twist the truth a little bit sometimes. But in actually putting this page out here, this is the actual definition of hemp per the page from the 2018 Federal Farm Bill. Now, we're currently waiting on a revision to the Farm Bill, but until then, this is where we're at, guys. And as you see right here, hemp is defined as, the term hemp means the plant Cannabis sativa L and any part of that plant, including seeds thereof, all derivatives, extracts, cannabinoids, isomers, acids, salts, and salts of isomers, whether growing or not, with a delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol concentration of not more than 0.3% on a dry weight basis. Now that's a lot, and we're going to break that down a little bit just to make it easier for you to understand. So with that being said, I want you guys to think about light for a minute, whether we're talking light outside or whether we're talking light in the room where you're standing. We know that we were outside and the sun was shining, and then the rain came, and it was an intense rain, and it came down hot, heavy, and fast, right? And then right after that, the sun comes out again. Well, what if we look in a distance, what do we see? We normally see a rainbow, because we know a rainbow is a full spectrum reflection of all the prism of all the colors, within the light prism, your reds, your blues, your greens, and your yellows. So for a second, with this diagram here, we think about the oil that is extracted from the cannabis plant. When we talk full spectrum oil, I want you to think of that same concept, but instead of reds, blues, greens, yellows, like would be found in a rainbow, okay? When we talk full spectrum, think of CBD, CBDA, CBG, think of all these cannabinoids that are within the plant. Now, this is not all of them. This is just a few of the major ones that people know about. And some people say, well, JJ, you should show them all. Well, if I show people this, sometimes people's heads have a tendency to pop off on the spot. I don't want to do that to you. So I keep it simple and give you something simple. Now, as you can see here, each cannabinoid is good for treating or alleviating certain conditions in the body. I'm not necessarily making medical claims. I'm just saying certain cannabinoids have been known to assist with certain issues in the body. So when we talk full spectrum, we're talking everything within the plant, the full spectrum or the full array. And going back to that definition where we were talking about in the Farm Bill, the one that they actually addressed in the Farm Bill is this one right here, delta-9 THC. So basically they're saying if the delta-9 THC concentration is greater than 0.3%, that is a marijuana plant, okay? But if the concentration is at or less than 0.3%, that is a hemp plant. Guys, I'm here to tell you, they look the same, they smell the same, they smoke the same, okay? One of them will get you higher than a kite. The other one, you can smoke a telephone pole of it and it won't do anything to you. Think about apples and oranges. Apples and oranges are both fruits, right? Well, hemp and marijuana are both cannabis. It's just that one will get you high and the other one does not have enough of the psychoactive component in it to get you high. So when we talk full spectrum, we're talking all of the cannabinoids that are within the oils that you first extract or within the actual plant material itself. Now, through time and temperature combinations of manipulating that oil, we can actually extract certain cannabinoids out and leave certain cannabinoids in. And one step down from full spectrum is something we call broad spectrum. Now I'm going to go back one slide here because you see you got your Delta 9 THC here. But as you can see from the slide, we also have other types of THC in here as well. Well, one of the things that you need to know, no matter, I know the federal farm bill talks about Delta 9, but these other THCs will get you in trouble with your employer as well. So one step down from full spectrum is something we call broad spectrum, where they've actually extracted all of the THC out. So technically, broad spectrum is like 3 or more, of these cannabinoids. But typically, when we're talking broad spectrum, we're talking something like this that's THC free. So if you see on a label, broad spectrum THC free, this is what they're talking about, guys, because all the THC has been extracted out, but all of the other cannabinoids are still in there to help alleviate certain conditions in the body. So people that are law enforcement members, firefighters, first responders, hell, even active duty military members, can actually take this stuff and not get in trouble with drug testing because there's no THC in it. And that's what they're looking for when they're looking for marijuana. Okay. Now, another step down from broad spectrum, where they isolate to just a CBD molecule by itself is something that we call isolate. And isolate looks like a white powdery substance. I'm going to be honest with you. It looks like cocaine. Okay. You see it on a table. You're like, whoa, I'm in the wrong room, but it is a very pure form of CBD that can still help alleviate certain conditions in the body. But as you can see here, something made out of isolate will help with a lot of stuff. But something that is broad spectrum is going to help more than something made out of isolate. And something that is full spectrum is going to help with more conditions in the body with your endocannabinoid system than something that was broad spectrum. So, the difference, or the main 3 terms you need to know, are full spectrum, broad spectrum, and isolate. Now, I'm going to go back a couple slides here and talk about a couple things with isolate because of the times that we're currently in right now. There's something called Delta 8 THC, and there's a lot of debate on whether it's natural, whether it's synthetic. But one thing you need to know, there are trace amounts of Delta 8 THC found in the cannabis plant, but nowhere near enough to keep up with the demand for all of these products that are out here in the world today. So basically what they're doing, guys, is now there are some people that are not doing this. I'm just speaking in general for the most part, okay? What they do is they take CBD isolate, they will add stuff to it like hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, and they will cook that material for X amount of hours at X amount of temperature and reverse engineer CBD isolate to turn it into Delta 8. Now, not sure if you guys notice or not, but some of the things that they're using to cook this stuff are the same things they use to cook methamphetamine. Okay. So that's why, certain, law enforcement agencies still have a problem. One of the reasons why they still have a problem with certain things like Delta 8 THC, in certain states. So there's the fact of how it's typically made, number one, and number two, there are very few rules to ensure that all of those residual solvents have been extracted out of that material before they turn it over to people for things like these gummies, spraying, hemp flower with Delta 8 THC distillate, things like that. So it's very tricky. And if you don't know how to navigate these muddy waters, for your particular area, you could get into a lot of trouble. So, Delta 8 is one of those hot button topics. It's okay in some states. Some states it is not. And we're going to give a few examples of that here in a few minutes, as time goes on within the presentation. So just wanted to make sure I address that with you. And moving one step further down that road with the Controlled Substances Act, if you notice at the top is the federal definition of, THC per, the feds, right? They say tetrahydrocannabinols, except from THC in hemp, as defined under Section 297A of the Agricultural Marketing Act of 1946. So if it's THC that's in hemp, meaning below 0.3, it's fine on a federal level. Now, let's talk about Texas for a minute, because that's where I currently live, is in Texas. And some of you guys listen to this, you may not be in Texas, but you need to be aware of what I'm talking about in general, because it very well may apply to your state. Now, in the state of Texas, Texas decided to amend or update their CSA, or their Controlled Substances Act. And they went into a little bit more detail that most people weren't aware of. So with the Texas CSA, they talk about, tetrahydrocannabinols, meaning tetrahydrocannabinols naturally contained in the plant of the genus cannabis, except for, up to 0.3% delta 9 THC in hemp, as defined under Texas Agriculture Code 121. And then this is something important, all right? They said, as well as synthetic equivalences of substances contained in the cannabis plant or in the resinous extractive of such plant, yada, 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 so on and such. But key word being synthetic equivalents, okay? And because of how Delta 8 is for the most part manufactured, they consider it synthetic. And since it's considered synthetic and it goes against the CSA for the state of Texas, that's why Texas is in such turmoil right now about Delta 8. And to narrow it down even further than just the state of Texas, county by county, you need to know what's going on within the county where you live or where you reside, because different counties can have, conflicting guidance. So it's important for you to truly understand, what's happening, within the state of Texas if you live in Texas. But if you live in another state, you may want to ask, okay, what is our state Controlled Substances Act state versus what the federal CSA states? Because that's something that could get you in trouble, depending upon what the Controlled Substances Act says or reflects for your particular state. So I just wanted people to know about that. Okay. Now, when we talk about the federal level, there was the federal definition per the 2018 Federal Farm Bill. But then the USDA, I call them Little Fed, okay, they kind of came up with their interim guidance or interim rules for, cannabis. And one of the things that they came out with their interim rules with the USDA, they initially said samples must be tested using post-decarboxylation or other similarly reliable analytical methods where total THC concentration level reported accounts for the conversion of delta 9 THCA into THC. So basically here, two things. One, they talk about post-decarboxylation and they talk about total THC versus delta 9 THC. So we need to dive into those waters a little bit so you understand, what that actually means. So first of all, when we talk about post-decarboxylation, that is a fancy word for setting the plant on fire or heating, right? When you heat it, there are certain things that happen to this plant that need to be taken into account. And that's basically what they want done. So, to show this slide again, as highlighted in red there, or, in the square, the federal guys are concerned, or at the federal level, they're concerned about delta 9 THC. But on the USDA level, the USDA is not only concerned about delta 9 THC, they're also concerned about anything that can be decarboxylated. For instance, here's another hot button topic right now. Most people know about THCA flower, right? But they don't realize that it's truly delta 9 THCA. And post decarboxylation is a fancy word for setting it on fire. So whenever you set the plant on fire or you heat it, you actually metabolize certain things within the plant, because the A stands for acid. And basically by setting the plant on fire or heating it, you actually metabolize the acid and it actually converts over to delta 9 THC. So these people right now that are trying to get away with selling or promoting THCA flower, it's a loophole, for right now, that, could potentially, come back and bite people in the future. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, as time goes on within the presentation as well. So here's something you guys can take a picture of if you would like. This is an activation temperature chart. It shows at certain temperatures, certain cannabinoids are activated within the cannabis plant. And that's something that you can have, for your reference. I just like to put it out there for people. Okay. Here's another chart of some different temperatures when certain cannabinoids are activated within the cannabis plant, as well as a few terpenes, as well. So feel free to take a picture of that if you'd like. Okay. Now, this is something that's, pretty pretty significant because, the Honorable Sonny Perdue, right after, the 2018 Farm Bill was passed, they came out with some documentation that kind of conflicted, what was going on with the USDA's guidance. Because basically, to make a long story short, as I highlighted down here in red, it says here, instead of following the similar reliable non-decarboxylation test to be used to measure delta 9 THC, the interim final rule, that was the USDA's guidance, introduce a new requirement contrary to the specific language in the 2018 Farm Bill that hemp samples must be tested using methods where THC concentration level reported accounts for the conversion of delta 9 THCA into THC. It says here, as authors of the Hemp Farming Act of 2018, that was included in 2018 Farm Bill, we believe strongly that this is a complete reversal of a congressional intent expressed in the law that requires testing that Congress specifically did not include. So to make a long story short, these guys are like, we don't know where the hell they came from with this language about post-decarboxylation and total THC, but that's not what we wrote. That wasn't our intent. So how long it takes the public, to catch up to this, I don't know. It's starting to happen at certain levels, but nobody wants to kiss that donkey, to make a long story short. So, it even says down here, requested fix. Given the 2018 Farm Bill specifically, and because it allows for flexibility in testing methods by allowing other similar reliable methods, we encourage the USDA to allow for testing for delta 9 THC using methods that do not involve the application of heat or decarboxylation to remove all requirements for converting THCA to THC. So basically, these guys want that post-decarboxylation language removed. They want the total THC language removed. But how long it actually takes it to happen, I do not know. But like I said, I just want to come out here and give you guys a factual account, for where things are. So with that being said, it's just another, reflection or another chart, the same chart that I, put up here time and time again. Basically, all they're saying with this chart is we would like to see us go back to delta 9 THC versus worrying about THCA conversion over to delta 9 THC. Okay. Another thing that they said in the interim rules from the USDA, they said the interim rules require that laboratories calculate and include measurement of uncertainty when they report THC test results. So measurement of uncertainty is something that was throwing people off a lot as well. They didn't know what that meant. So the best way I put measurement of uncertainty, if I'm standing in my house and I stand on my scale, I probably weigh 210 pounds on my scale. But if I go to one person's house and stand on their weight scale, I might weigh 207 pounds. I go to somebody else's house, I may weigh 213, 214 pounds. There's a little bit of difference based on scale manufacturers. Well, it's no different when we talk about testing equipment because different laboratories have different testing equipment. So that little bit of fudge factor, it makes a huge difference between analyzers. And because they know that and they recognize that, they came up with measurement of uncertainty to give people a little bit of buffer when it comes to testing results. So this example that they included, this is great because right here in red, let's say that the real number that was reported out from a laboratory on your crop was 0.35% on THC. Now most people be like, oh damn, I'm in trouble because I'm over 0.3. Well, typically yes, that is true. But if that laboratory has a measurement of uncertainty of plus or minus 0.06 because of their analyzer, now you have a range. So the range is anywhere from 0.29 up to 0.41. And as long as you're within that range, you're okay. But that's where knowing how to read these certificate of analysis or these report cards on your cannabis product comes into play. Because if you don't know that and understand what measurement of uncertainty means, you may think that your crop is hot when it's really not. And it's important for you to know that because if the person that comes out to inspect your crop from the Department of Agriculture doesn't know how to read measurement of uncertainty, you need to make sure you point that out to them before they destroy your crop. So definitely important to know what measurement of uncertainty is all about. And as you can see here, and once again, this was in the interim guidance. They said for purposes of this part, Delta 9 THC and THC are interchangeable. I do not agree. Delta 9 THC and THC, they're two different cannabinoids. And when I show you the calculation in a minute, you'll see what I'm talking about. They're not interchangeable, in my personal opinion. Okay. So with that being said, another thing that they came out with, they said laboratories who conduct THC testing must also be registered with the DEA to handle controlled substances under the Controlled Substances Act and DEA regulations. Okay. So basically, when people see this, the first thing that they think is, okay, well, if I'm testing with a laboratory, they have to be registered with the DEA. Yes, they are supposed to be registered with the DEA, but understand the DEA registration is not about the numbers that the laboratory is putting out. The DEA registration is about protocols for the laboratory, making sure that they have locking doors, making sure that if they test something that does come up over 0.3% THC, they have a place to lock it and secure it with cameras watching it until it can be taken and properly disposed of. Things like that has nothing to do with the quality of the numbers. So for those of you thinking, well, I'm going to go to a DEA registered lab because they have better numbers. No, that is not true. It's not about the numbers. It's about the protocols that they have in place. Every visitor that comes into your facility, do you have a sign-in log for them, to sign in and out of your facility? I know this stuff because I actually owned a cannabis testing laboratory, and this is a battle that not necessarily a battle, but it's what we had to do to attain that DEA registration. So just wanted people to know what that was about. Okay. And then the USDA came out with their final rules. And within their final rules, there were some things in there to kind of make you go, that's different, And one of the things that they started doing within their final rules, they started saying a term, because we had heard of Delta 9 THC prior, right? We heard of total THC prior, but they started saying total Delta 9 THC out of nowhere, right? And people are scratching their head like, okay, wow, well, what does that mean? What do they want? What are they looking for there, right? And several times within the publication, they talk about total Delta 9 THC, and people are like, what in the world, right? And in the testing for total THC, the laboratory portion, they actually kind of get it right because they say Delta 9 THCA here. So they're starting to get it, but it's like there's really no clear guidance, what they really meant there. And then within that final guidance, they actually posted the calculation. And the calculation, when this calculation was posted, people kind of started being like, oh, okay. So here's how the calculation goes, guys. So for total THC, basically what they're wanting you to do is they're wanting you to take the number 0.877, multiply it by the level of THCA that's in your plant. And then that actually gets added to the Delta 9 THC within your plant to come up with a number for total THC. So when we're talking about the total THC number, total THC is based on two cannabinoids, guys. It's based on THCA and it's based on Delta 9 THC. That's it. Those are the two cannabinoids. It doesn't mention Delta 8 at all. It doesn't mention THCV. It doesn't mention HHC. It doesn't mention any of these others. So that's why people are able to get away with that for right now, because it is not talking about those two cannabinoids. But I think, and this is just JJ's personal opinion, I think one of the dumbest things that you can do right now, knowing that THCA is one of the actual cannabinoids that they're looking for, one of the dumbest things that you can do right now is play around with THCA. So those people who are out here, selling THCA flower, hey, if you get away with it, sure. But understand, that customer buys a legal THCA product, in a store because, they can, because THCA is not under scrutiny in certain states because they're worried about Delta 9 THC and not total THC. But if that person buys THCA flower in that store, and they go and they put it in their car and they leave it in their car for too long and it gets too hot, now that THCA, the A metabolizes and it converts over to Delta 9 THC. And then a member of law enforcement pulls them over. And next thing you know, they're getting popped for weed. So how do you leave a store with a legal product, leave it in your car for too long, and now it's weed and you're faced with a felony? That's what you guys have to think about that are selling THCA flower, those of you that are buying THCA flower, because basically you're buying weed. I'm just telling you like it is, so you have to be, really careful and understand these rules, and know what's going on. Okay. So, going back, just kind of brief recap on that, the two cannabinoids that they are concerned about, within the total THC calculation are delta 9 THC as well as delta 9 THCA. But because of what post decarboxylation is and what it means per the USDA guidance, okay, post decarboxylation means heating or setting it on fire. And when that actually happens, you remove the A and it converts over to delta 9 THC, which is actually on the radar. And if you're over 0.3, it's a problem. So it's important for you to know what's happening in your particular state with these two cannabinoids, because it can get you in a lot of trouble if you don't understand it. Okay. Here's an example that I found, out there, in various pictures on the internet. So this is someone who is selling a legal product of THCA flower. It is 22.3% THCA flower in the store. There is no way you're going to take 22.3, multiply that by 0.877 and add that to delta 9, which is already at, 0.3, and be below 0.3 for total THC. So that's why I'm saying, guys, be really careful and know the rules for your particular area, because there are people out there, as much as I hate to say it, there are people out there right now that are selling THCA flower because they can. They're going to make as much money as they can while they can. And then when it gets shut down, they don't give a shit anymore. I'm just telling you like it is. So just know that that's what the THCA flower game is all about currently. And like I said, knowing that, understanding that the decarboxylation is a factor for that conversion, that's really stuff that you need to know and be on the lookout for. One of the things that I found interesting in their finalized guidance was they said Dr. Small in his research derived that the 0.3% threshold was used as a basis for the 2018 Farm Bill requirement and is used by law enforcement as the threshold to differentiate hemp from marijuana. So basically, they used Dr. Small's research as the focal point, for writing, or where that number 0.3 actually comes from. Now, me being a little bit of a cynic and kind of, looking at some of his research as well, here's the real deal, guys. Dr. Small's research is called A Practical and Natural Taxonomy for Cannabis. Go look it up for yourself. Dr. Ernest Small and Dr. Arthur Conquest. And when you look at that actual document itself, here's what it actually states. It says it will be noted that we arbitrarily, which means we just pick this number, right? We arbitrarily adopt a concentration of 0.3% delta 9 THC on a dry weight basis in the young, vigorous leaves of relatively mature plants as a guide to discriminate the two classes of plants in the young, vigorous leaves. So when people come out and test your crop, they're not just, they're collecting buds, all right? They're collecting the highest concentrations of cannabinoids are going to be in the buds. So if they're testing buds, it's like, what are we doing, guys? Because we're supposed to be testing the leaves. Now, how long is it going to take them to get this right and write this wrong? I don't know. But this is the source document and what the source document actually states. And I like making sure that people know what the source documentation states and where to find it. So you can go and throw it right back in people's face when they're saying, well, you're over 0.3. Well, here's what the source document says. So how did you guys test my crop again? So I like to make sure people know this stuff. And it's actually pointed out there again, within that source document as well. This is just a second place where it basically says the same thing. So I just like for you guys to know that. Okay. This is another pivotal person, in the cannabis space, Jack Herer. He was an Army veteran, and he actually wrote a powerful book, and I highly recommend everyone go and look this up. You can scan the QR code there on your screen, but it's called The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And in The Emperor Wears No Clothes, there is a lot of source documentation, for different things that he addresses, talking about some scandal that happened with the plant going all the way back to 1937 and before then. So I advise everyone who is a serious player in this space, please go and get The Emperor Wears No Clothes, kind of, know where we came from, so that we're not doomed to repeat that history, again within the cannabis space. So The Emperor Wears No Clothes, Jack Herer, please go get that. Please look that up for yourself. Now, kind of moving on to the fun stuff. We're gonna, we're done with reading for the most part, but now it's kind of move on to some pictures. All right. So with that being said, this plant growing out there in the field, we don't know if this is a hemp plant or a marijuana plant. All right. We won't know until we actually go get some samples of it, take it to a laboratory like what I used to operate, right? And have them test it to tell us the levels of THC. Then that's when we know whether it's a hemp plant or a marijuana plant. Now, this version of the plant grows 4 to 6 feet tall. This is the one that they're using to make the CBD tinctures, the bombs, the salves. When we talk about deals for biomass in this space, we're talking about this plant right here. So that's what the plant looks like growing. And then once the plant is grown and it's ready to harvest, you cut it down and you actually take it and you hang it upside down to actually dry. Because by letting it do that, the cannabinoids that are in the stock actually gravity feed out to the leaves, out to the buds, and it makes it way more concentrated. But you got to make sure you have a lot of moving air while these plants are drying, okay? There's another picture of some plants drying as well, okay? Now, once they're dried, people take those buds and they will trim them up if they're selling them for smokable flower. Okay. Once again, know what you're growing for. If you're growing for smokable flower, know that you're going to have a trimming force once those plants are dry to come in and trim those buds down. If you're growing for biomass, you're not necessarily concerned with a trimming process for the extra leaves that are on the plants. Okay. Now, if you're harvesting for biomass, this is some equipment that can be used to do that. I don't recommend you use this equipment if you're growing for smokable flower, because these types of machines will tear up your trichromes. They will, they'll kind of tear up your terpenes a little bit and things of that nature. When you're using machinery like this, you're using it because you don't care how the plant looks. Okay. You're just going to take the plant back and extract the oils out of it. So if you're growing specifically for smokable flower, you've got to have hands on those plants every day, guys, not this type of equipment right here. Okay. And here's an example of a female versus a male plant. Okay. Just know that if you're growing for biomass, if you're growing for smokable flower, you do not want any male plants in the field, So even if you buy feminized seed, you still need to walk those fields or walk those greenhouses or those indoor grows, because you could possibly still have a female or two here and there, or a plant gets too stressed out and it starts to hermaphrodite on you. Okay. So just know the difference between males and females, and know that if you see a male plant, you need to eradicate that bad boy right away, because those pollen sacs burst and cross-pollinate your crop. Now you're going to have more seed in your crop than actual, bud material, which could dilute your final numbers, in terms of when you're trying to see how strong your CBD content is for the crop that you actually just grew. Okay. And this is an example of what one of those looks like out in the field, if you see it. So just wanted you to see that. Here's another good slide that shows the difference between a CBD crop from a fiber grain crop from a actual fiber crop. So just wanted you to see, the difference in comparison. But look at how close they're planting for fiber, right, versus CBD. So it's a totally different process. It's a growing, it's a difference in growing strategy, if you're growing for CBD versus growing for an actual fiber crop. Okay, here are some numbers that were turned over to me. There was a farmer in Texas that grew 18 acres, for biomass. These are some of his numbers. If you want to know what those numbers mean, I got permission to put that cell phone number up there in the upper right-hand corner, on the slide presentation. So if you guys want to call and ask them questions, hey, feel free, because I didn't grow it, so I can't explain those numbers to you. But I just wanted you guys to have a better idea of some of the costs associated, if you're growing for biomass, in particular. Okay. So with that said, when we first extract the oil out of a plant, here's what that oil actually looks like. It looks like this black burnt motor oil. We actually call it crude oil. Okay. And a couple of years ago, crude oil was going for $500 to $1,000 a liter. Okay, that's not where we're at these days within the space, but back in the day when things were jumping and hot and heavy, that's what crude oil was going for. Now, crude oil has a lot of fats, a lot of waxes, a lot of lipids in it, and you can actually extract that stuff out and concentrate crude oil. So when you extract those fats, those waxes and lipids, that's what they look like when they're extracted out. But what you're left with after that is what we call distillate. And distillate is a very concentrated form of oil associated with this plant. This is what's known as THC distillate, meaning there's still THC in it and it's really concentrated. Okay. Now you can actually extract THC out. This is what we call THC free distillate. So I'm going to back up a minute. THC distillate was going from anywhere from like $2,000 to $5,000, a liter a few years ago. I've seen it as high as $8,000 a liter. And THC free distillate was going for like $15,000, $20,000, a liter. Those aren't the times where we're at today because there's so much, material in the market, and there's been kind of a pullback, recently. I wouldn't say that the market is dead. I would say that the market was flooded with material, for a while. And now that they're starting to use those stockpiles up, prices are starting to fluctuate. People are starting to get those premium prices again, for some of these extracts that come from the cannabis plant. Okay. There's a picture side by side of what THC free looks like on the left versus THC distillate on the right. Okay. And this is what isolate looks like. Remember, I was telling you it looks like cocaine. Okay, that's what it looks like. This is a very pure form of CBD that's been isolated down to just the CBD molecule by itself. And isolate, that stuff, goes for, $400 or $500 a pound, now. It was going for $500 to $1,000 a pound, a few years ago, but that's just not where we're at, right now in this space. And one thing about isolate, guys, is it's colorless and it's tasteless. So if you buy a CBD product that tastes really good, 9 times out of 10, it's made out of isolate. Okay. And they added some artificial flavoring to it. If you're buying something that's broad spectrum or full spectrum, it's going to taste earthy. It's going to taste like plant material because that's truly what it is. But it's actually better for your endocannabinoid system versus something that's just made out of isolate. Now, some people will manufacture products out of isolate to not necessarily be cheap, but to just assure that people are not going to fail drug testing with their products because there's nothing in it. It's been isolated down to just the CBD molecule by itself. Okay. And here are some differences between hemp oil versus CBD oil. The main thing with hemp oil comes from hemp seeds. Okay. Hemp seeds don't have cannabinoids in them. They have a lot of, they have protein, they have a lot of omega fatty acids in it, but they have no cannabinoids. Cannabinoids don't come in play until the seeds actually start to grow plants and plant material. That's where the cannabinoids actually come into play. And that's where it gets tricky. And you want to make sure that those plants are not stressed out so that they're not producing more THC than CBD, depending upon the genetics that you actually select for a grow. Okay. Here are some uses. Here's some ways that your endocannabinoid system will be properly supported by CBD products. Please feel free to take a picture of that, share that information around. Once again, I'm not making medical claims. This is not my damn slide. I found this on the internet, but like I said, there are many uses for this plant. There are many ways that it helps our bodies heal, helps our bodies repair, and we're starting to do more research within the United States to actually back that, to back those claims up. Okay. Here's a good chart that shows how certain cannabinoids can help with certain conditions in the body. If you're having issues, with acne, right, you may want to look for some THC, some CBD, or some CBN. If you're having issues with nausea, you may want to look for something that is CBD rich, so on and such. So please feel free to take a picture of that as well. Okay. And this is just a picture of a terpene chart, guys. There are certain terpenes associated with cannabinoids as well as other plants in natures. Terpenes actually open us up to allow us the ability to receive more cannabinoids within. So like I said, there are various cannabinoids or terpenes, as well. So here are a few of the terpenes and some conditions, not conditions, but some things associated with those terpenes, like boiling points, aromas, effect, uh, also where it's found, as well as some of the medical benefits as well. So in a lot of instances, terpenes are really where it's at and not necessarily cannabinoids. So don't sleep on terpenes because they're very important as well. Okay. And this is some equipment of what's used to actually process biomass to actually extract the oils. My buddy Joey Robinson at Wagon Trail Hemp Farms in I think they're in they're in Alabama. I keep forgetting. I want to say Clayton, Alabama, but I don't think it's Clayton. I think it's Camden. I don't know. Joey, forgive me because I'm on the spot. But basically, my buddy Joey, he actually gave us these photos to be able to use. He had an ethanol extraction facility, and it just shows some of the equipment that they actually use where they put the raw biomass material in ethanol and they soak it and they run it through this distillation process. And out of the bottom comes crude oil, right? That we've seen before. Now, this is what CBG crude oil actually looks like. It crystallizes faster than CBD crude oil. Because when I saw this, I was like, dude, Joey, what's that? He said that's CBG crude. It actually crystallizes a little bit faster than CBD crude. So that's what that looks like. And this is a picture of some further distillation, equipment. These are 4 different stations that are set up. And I'm going to kind of use my little pointer here to just kind of highlight a couple things. Okay. So what they would do is they would take some crude oil and they would put it here and they would heat it a little bit. And then that crude oil actually makes its way through these chambers and it actually comes out of the bottom, actually in the distillate format. So there are 4 different stations here, and that's what some of this distillation equipment actually looks like that's out here in the cannabis space. I just wanted you guys to see that. Now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about fiber. Okay, there are actually over 25,000 products that are manufactured right now to this day. Today is currently December the 7th of 2023. There are over 25,000 products that are manufactured from hemp fibers right now. And here's what that crop actually looks like, okay? Right here, that is not a midget, guys. That is a full-grown man. And this is a hemp crop as well. This one doesn't grow 4 to 6 feet tall. This one grows 15 to 20 feet tall. And like I said, there are over 25,000 industrial uses for it right now. Anything made out of paper, anything made out of plastic. Audi and BMW actually use hemp in their door panels right now. It's no secret that if you grow an acre of trees and an acre of hemp side by side, if you cut down an acre of trees, it takes 15 to 20 years for an acre of trees to grow back. But if you cut down an acre of hemp every 90 to 120 days, you can go in and do the same thing again and again and again. So you can get 3 to 4 times the amount of yield off of an acre of hemp as you could an acre of trees. Now, do you think the paper company wanted people to know that? Absolutely not. Do you think the plastics manufacturers wanted people to know that? Absolutely not, right? Right. So, and this is one of the things that's discussed in The Emperor Wears No Clothes, where Jack Harris states that, the paper industry, the plastic industry, and the tobacco industry, because hemp flower is actually good for you to smoke as long as it doesn't have a bunch of crazy nutrients in it that would cause the body harm. So paper industry, plastic industry, tobacco industry, they actually got together, pool their resources. And there was a bunch of money, donated to the government to get hemp put on Schedule 1 narcotics at the same time as we were having a problem with marijuana in our country. They actually did that to get it out of the way of their profit margins so that they could go on and do the things that they've been doing. Another interesting fact, Henry Ford in 1945 made a car that the door panels were made out of a hemp composite and it ran on hemp biofuel. Go Google the Model T by Henry Ford and you'll see that car, for yourself. Well, ask yourself, where's that car to this day? Nobody knows, right? So like I said, there's certain things, within this space that are kind of, ain't that something, but, like I said, there are many uses for this plant right now. And, what I try to do with my seminar is actually highlight some of this stuff to kind of bring it back to the forefront so that, they used to pay people to grow this stuff, back in the day for the war effort. Ropes, ships, sails, our military uniforms were actually made out of this stuff. back in the day, but nobody knows about it because we've got close to 100-year history of not talking about this plant, in the United States. And like I said, many reasons why, but like I said, I just want to dive into a little bit of this just so you guys are aware. So like I said, here are some of the uses, for this plant. And when we actually cut that plant down and we look at it from a side profile, this is what it looks like right here, the stalk of that plant. Okay. The outer portion of the stalk is something that we call bast fiber. And the inner portion of the stalk it's a woody coarse material. We call it hurd. Okay. Here's a different picture of what bast fiber looks like separated from hurd. Here's another picture of the bast separated from hurd. The green microfiber here on the right, it's just basically the tops of the plants that have been harvested separately. You can actually extract a little bit of oil out of a dual crop or a tricrop from, fiber plants that are grown specifically for fiber, the long stalk, okay? And one of the things that's gaining a lot of traction right now in the United States, we're going to talk about it here in a few minutes, is something called hempcrete. Hempcrete is a combination of the one in the middle here, hurd, lime, and water. But before we talk about hempcrete, we got to talk about some equipment that is used to actually separate the fiber from the hurd. And that equipment is called decortication equipment. Now, here are some examples of some big pieces of decortication equipment from manufacturer here, within the US. I'm not sure you can actually see it over here on the far right, but basically they actually have some hemp bundled up here that they're actually starting to feed through this machine right here to actually start the decortication process, because it takes a lot of energy and effort, to have these decorticators out here, in the US and doing certain things. There have been some decortication innovation, here recently, where you don't need all of these different big pieces of equipment. There are single units out there now that will actually decorticate and separate the fiber from the hurd, and it doesn't damage the hurd because it doesn't beat on the hurd like a lot of these traditional hammer mill style type of decorticators. This is one that actually uses resonance. It uses frequency to actually separate the hurd from the fiber along its natural lines of fissure. So you have a cleaner product that comes out one pass, one machinery, less employees, less electricity use, and things of that nature. So they're just different, ways of going about doing decortication. And this is a sample of the material that will come off of that last piece of that last decorticator that I actually showed you in one pass. Some of the hurd is micronized, some of it is medium size, some of it is larger size, but that will actually come off of one piece of equipment if that piece of equipment is tuned properly, versus having to do multiple passes through the multiple machines, or getting the material off and running it through again to get better quality, so on and such. So it just depends on what you're trying to do and how much you're trying to spend if you're looking to do decortication. One thing that I encourage people about decortication is if you're going to grow for fiber, please make sure you're within a 150-mile radius of a decorticator, because if you're out of that 150-mile radius, you're going to eat yourself up logistics wise, trucking that stuff up and down the road to get it decorticated. And then if you don't have an end user for that fiber, it's kind of useless anyway. So you need to make sure that you know who's going to buy it, and you need to make sure that you're within a 150-mile radius of a decortication facility to make it worth your while. Okay. And like I was saying, Audi and BMW are actually using it in their door panels right now. It won't be long before other manufacturers are using it in door panels as well, as people start to catch on. And as you guys are spreading Hemp 101, right, around the United States, because I'm going to take this video will be on YouTube. I will make a link for it, and you guys can just send the link out to people when you want them to know information. Okay. Like I said, back in the day, they were making, rope, out of this stuff. We're making rope, not dope. That's what they used to say, for hemp back in the day. They're also making different fabrics out of hemp as well, the hemp fibers. One of the things that's, like I was talking about previously, that's starting to gain notoriety, in the United States, and some of this stuff was actually just approved in 2023 for building code standards in the United States, is something called hempcrete. Now, hempcrete is a combination of the hurd, lime, and water mixed together. And when you mix this stuff together, it makes almost like an oatmeal consistency type material. Here's a picture of me actually making, some hempcrete with some friends of mine at an actual conference. And the thing about hempcrete, guys, is when you mix this stuff up, and you can make walls out of this stuff. And I'm going to show you in a second. But when you use hempcrete as a building material, hempcrete is mold resistant, it's pest resistant, it's fire retardant, and it sequesters carbon. You literally can put a blowtorch up against hempcrete for hours at over 5,000 degrees, and this stuff will not catch on fire. Can you imagine your house being made from something like that, to where, you have these fires that come through and your house does not burn down? So it's just really a better building, material, and it's starting to gain traction in the United States as we speak. Now, this was a project that I was, you know, lucky enough to be involved with in San Antonio, Texas. As you can see, this was the foundation of the house, or of the structure. And in the center here, instead of insulation, they actually packed it with hempcrete. Okay. Then they put some plywood over it. And then from there, they constructed the walls. Okay. Now, once they had the walls up, they actually put forms on the outside of the wall, as you can see, and they actually packed the hempcrete inside. They did that through a process called tamping. Now, this is something that we call cast in place, within the industry, where they're actually, making these walls out of hempcrete on the actual job site. So that's what it looks like when you're packing the hempcrete in. When you actually remove the forms, this is what hempcrete looks like as you're building walls. Okay. This is what an actual entire wall looks like made out of hempcrete. And then from there, this particular structure, they did the same thing, with the ceiling as well. And it's a moisture open material. It doesn't create a moisture barrier. It's moisture open. So basically, these structures breathe all the time. So it's nice to be inside of one of these things, because between the soundproofing and the temperature regulation and the thermal properties, it is actually amazing. From here, they actually put a lime plaster coating on the outside of it as well. My buddy Ray Catterley and Andrew Hancock, they are the ones who actually were heavily involved with this project. Ray Catterley is actually the president of the U.S. Hemp Building Association. They're doing a lot of great things here, in the United States. Andrew is building several structures, or, houses. He's working on projects right now, building with hempcrete as well. And this is what the finalized product looks like, guys. This is actually the famous I call it the famous Amos juice bar in San Antonio, Texas, off of Bulverde Road. So he actually has a hempcrete juice bar where he actually makes hempcrete smoothies, where you can take fresh ground up cannabis and put it in smoothies. Because guess what? When you grind it up and you drink it, you don't get high. You don't get high until you actually set this stuff on fire. But when you talk about the antioxidant properties and just overall good health and detoxifying your body, hemp smoothies are truly the way to go. And I encourage you, if you're in the San Antonio, Texas area, go by, see this structure for yourself, talk to Amos. He is doing great things there at the Hempcrete Juice Bar. This is another one of Ray's projects in San Antonio, Texas. This is actually a home. I took some pictures of it right after they got the hempcrete walls, constructed. And then from there, I, went and took some other pictures, as well. This is a pivotal picture that I wanted to show you guys, because as you can see, you see the hempcrete in the wall, and you actually, they're on the left side over here. You actually see where they were starting to do the plaster, the first coat of lime plaster. So that was the first coat, and they put coats on top of that. And now this is what it actually looks like. So once again, that's a more recent picture of where the project is. No AC, no heat in the middle of summer in San Antonio. You go in there, you almost need a jacket, because it's still really nice and chilly with no electricity or no heat, running, to that building. So it's an amazing building material. I have some friends of mine who actually built in another area of Texas, in Lindale, Texas. They built with hempcrete, as well. This was their home that they actually were working on. Okay. This is what the hempcrete looks like, on the inside. And hempcrete is more of an insulative material. People think the term hempcrete and concrete. No, hempcrete is more of an insulator. It's not necessarily a structural material. yet. It's something that you use in the place of insulation within your home. Very nice couple. They willing to let people, come by and take a tour. I was like, sure, I'm going to go take a look at this thing, and then once they had the walls up, they went with their siding. It's still breathable. It's still moisture open. And one of the things about this house that I love, they told me a story a few years ago in San Antonio when we had a very bad snowstorm. They went to this house to work on it. There was no electricity, no heat at the house whatsoever. It was -6 degrees outside, but inside of the house, it was 43 degrees, guys. 43 degrees with no heat, no running water, no nothing. So that just is another testament to the thermal properties of hempcrete and what it actually does. On the inside of their house, they decided to do this kind of design on one of the walls and show the hempcrete, to people at the bottom, just to prove, what's in the walls. So they had some fun with it. You can do different things, with it. These are some tiny homes that are being constructed out of hempcrete because people first see this stuff like, yeah, I'm going to build this big house, right? And then they realize, oh, I don't have the budget for that, But if you do a tiny home or build a she shed on your property or something, so you can see for yourself the thermal properties and how great of a material it actually is. So there's a few examples there. This is something that I actually saw the other day. This is a spray application that's being put up right now because they actually sprayed the walls, on the ground, and now they're assembling those sprayed walls instead of doing the casting, in place and tamping it, into place and moving the forms up and tamping it and moving it up, so there are different applications. People are doing different things, with this material. So it's pretty awesome. This is a video that I am not going to necessarily show here. You guys can go look this video up on YouTube for yourself. Basically, what it shows is it actually shows someone who built a block out of hempcrete, and they literally took a blowtorch at 5,000 degrees and set this thing on fire, and it shows that it does not burn. So please feel free to go look this YouTube video up for yourself, because in the interest of time, and I'm already covering so much stuff, I don't want to waste your time with another 8-minute video. But definitely go look it up. And at 5 minutes and 20 seconds in, that's when they got that torch really hunkered down on that thing at 5,000 degrees going to town. So please check that video out. It's pretty awesome. Okay. Here's some examples of some hempcrete blocks that are actually starting to be manufactured. Hempcrete blocks aren't necessarily manufactured in the US right now. I know they're being done in Canada, and people are shipping those to the United States and doing projects with those as well. This is awesome. This is actually hemp wood. My buddy Greg Wilson is the owner of Hemp Wood in Murray, Kentucky, and they're actually doing boards and blocks out of hemp wood. Now, hemp wood is not currently structural lumber, but they're working on it, right now. This is me and Greg, at a conference. The floor down here, this is actually hemp wood. He actually has, different things that he manufactures out of hemp wood as well. He actually has a project going with BMW right now where they're actually doing center consoles out of hemp wood as well. They have pins that they're making out of hemp wood. They have display cases. They have these bowls. They're doing, turkey collars, duck collars, just different things, out of hemp wood, having a great time, with that material. And, unlike most people, this is a picture frame out of hemp wood. Most people who get out here and they talk about hemp, they just talk about it and they just have a bunch of pictures of stuff that they found. No, me, myself, I made the trip to Murray, Kentucky, to the hemp wood factory, and met Greg, and his workers, after I met him at the conference, the trade show. And they're doing some amazing things, guys. And the reason I put, my face in so many pictures out here, I'm not trying to brag, I'm not trying to boast, but I just want you guys to know that I'm not just talking about this stuff. I've literally gone and I've done certain things, and I've made the contacts with people. And that's how I know what I know, in this space, versus Googling or using, AI to try to find a bunch of facts about hempcrete. No, damn that. I went and met the people that are doing the real work, in this space. Okay. Another thing, like we talked about earlier, hemp plastics. That's something else that you need to be aware of, because hemp plastics are out there, and yes, they're biodegradable. Hemp straws, they're out there as well, versus those paper straws that people are trying to, push these days. This is another product that out there that's biodegradable and compostable. So be aware of that. And they actually use micronized hurd to do some of these plastics. And when I say micronized, I'm talking about the more finer, hurd that comes through a decorticator versus the more coarse stuff that can be used in hempcrete, animal bedding, different, absorbency materials and things like that. So there's that. This was something pretty cool that I saw in Tennessee. They were actually making some sunglasses out of hemp plastics. Okay, so I know what can be done with this, forks, knives, spoons. I'm pretty proud of these pieces of silverware here because it actually says, you look at the fork, it says made in Alabama from sustainable crops. Me, myself, I'm from Mobile, Alabama, so I take a lot of pride when I see stuff like that. So just different things are being, made from a plastic standpoint, out of hempcrete as well. These are some people that I trust firsthand. You can feel free to reach out to them, directly yourself, if you want to, for these various products. Tell them you talk to JJ and JJ sent you their way, and they'll, have some great conversations with you. So please feel free, to reach out if you so choose. Now, moving on to some bonus information, a few things you need to know. Those of you that are getting started in this space and you're trying to do a business, you need to deal with a bank that knows how to bank in cannabis. Because if you go to these big banks, like, JP Morgan, Chase, USA, Navy Federal, any of these others, and you're trying to start bank accounts, they may initially start a bank account with you, but then once they see you're running CBD transactions and they don't really understand it, and they know that, marijuana is a Schedule 1 narcotic, they're shutting accounts down left and right. So I know for a fact Herring Bank is one of those banks that truly understands. And if you're in a state that has a marijuana program, they'll give you a marijuana account. If you're in a state that has a hemp program, they will give you a hemp account. These guys get it. They understand. My buddy Andrew Escamilla, he actually runs their program, for them. And Andrew's been doing an amazing job putting programs together and helping people get started, with accounts, around the U.S. Another bank that is great about this is First Citizens Bank as well. Once again, if you're in a state that has a marijuana program, they can give you a marijuana account. If you're somewhere where they're doing hemp, they can give you a hemp account. My buddy Ryan Palmquist runs that program, and they've been doing a phenomenal job. And people say, who's First Citizens? Well, First Citizens is the bank that actually bought out Silicon Valley Bank. Just FYI. So they're not small. They're doing great things. And my buddy Ryan Palmquist up here, the big guy up here, him and his staff, they're doing great things in this space. And the main difference I will tell you between First Citizens and Herring Bank, if you're just a small outfit and you're trying to get going and you just need an account to get going, First Citizens or Herring, can handle that for you. But if you need loans to do stuff within your business, First Citizens is going to be the one to go to for that, because Herring is not really doing a lot of loans within, the cannabis space, for equipment, and things like that. And watch, as soon as I shoot this video, somebody's going to contact me. Well, it's not true, JJ. We're doing blah, 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 blah. Now, well, damn it. You should have been doing the shit when I, when I was telling you, when I was, making suggestions about things that you guys should do. You weren't, so sorry. Too bad, so sad. It is what it is. But I know First Citizens, what they're doing in terms of, loans for equipment and things like that. So keep that in mind. Another thing that you need is a payment processor, right? The bank holds your money, but these merchant processors, they can be, a struggle as well. Using someone like, maybe a QuickBooks or a Square. Back in the day, there were problems, with PayPal. Back in the day, there were problems with them processing cannabis transactions because they didn't understand it and they were shutting people's accounts off. Well, Coastal Pay, these guys understand. And if you do business with them, you'll be fine. For a merchant processor, they'll run your transactions and then they'll run your transaction and put the money, in your cannabis bank. So cannabis specific merchant processor, cannabis specific bank, you have a smooth time with no issues. Okay. This is something that I wanted you guys to know about as well, because there are people in this space. I have these conversations all the time, right? And people are like, oh, that hempcrete stuff's not going to catch on. It's not financially viable. The housing market will never blah, blah, blah. All these naysayers, whatever, man, do your thing. But here's what I know for a fact. Citizens Bank, which is different from First Citizens. Citizens Bank is a bank in Trenton, Georgia, and John Cole is the senior VP of that institution, and they actually just did their first hempcrete new construction loan for a residential house. Now, they did approve hempcrete blocks for that project, and they are actually doing things in 3 counties in regards to hempcrete. And the three counties in Georgia that they're actually doing stuff in right now, and I'm going to look this up real quick. They're doing things in Dade County, Walker County, as well as Catoosa County. Those are the 3 counties, because this is a small bank, right? And they're doing small things, making small moves forward in their area. If you're not in Georgia, there's no need in contacting them to do a hempcrete construction loan. What you need to do is find a small bank in your state and be willing to do the leg work and let them know about hempcrete and provide them with documentation and provide them with proof that this stuff is actually a great insulated material to possibly get those banks in other states to start signing off on things like this as well. And we have more positive testimonies, within our actual space. Helix is a great app for cannabis transactions. This is an app that you can download on the Apple Store as well as the Google Store as well, and actually process cannabis transactions on an app. It is pretty awesome for you to be able to do this. I have a lot more information on this. If you guys hit me up individually on my email address, I'll be happy to provide you more information. You can actually use my QR code there to scan this to get to the Helix app. And we can talk about a few things, with that as well. Like I said, just email me. My email address is James, James, at jjgro.com. Okay. So now moving on to testing, and we're almost done, guys. But like I said, I knew this was going to be a little bit long, but I wanted to make sure I gave you guys the entire, ball of wax with this space so that you can kind of make the best possible decisions for yourself. So when we talk about testing, it's important that you know and understand what something is that's called a COA, or certificate of analysis. Okay. So earlier I mentioned the QR code. And when you scan the QR code, this QR code on that product that you're about to purchase, the QR code should lead you to a COA. And on a COA, or certificate of analysis, you'll notice that it's actually got the cannabinoids over here, and it's actually got, the concentration and the strength of those cannabinoids within that substance. And down here, it'll tell you, total THC. Okay. It'll tell you total CBD. Now, if you're a member of law enforcement, firefighter, military, first responder of any sort, right here where it says total THC, it needs to say zeros across the board, or ND for none detected. All right. If it says anything other than that, and you're in a position of where you're worried about failing drug tests, you're going to fail if there are numbers in here. Okay. But if your employer is not concerned about, marijuana, or you're someone that's not worried about drug testing, hey, go nuts up to 0.3% total THC, and, and you'll be fine on those products. Like I said, it's important for you to know this, because the person selling it to you behind the counter, they may not be aware of this. So it is what it is. It's kind of the wild, wild west times right now. Another thing to be aware of and know how to convert your CBD content and understand how payout goes, because back in the day, if you were growing a crop specifically for CBD, if your CBD content was 19.8%, man, this could have been a good thing for you. So let's say hypothetically, instead of 19.8, that's a 20. Okay. And let's say hypothetically that each plant that you're growing, if you're growing specifically for CBD, let's say that each plant was putting off a pound of material. Okay. If it's putting off a pound of material and you got a 20% crop, and you have someone that comes to you and they're like, hey man, I'm going to give you $3 per percent per pound. Right. So if you take, then you do the math on that, that basically means every plant is worth $60. Now, if someone is growing specifically for CBD and they're growing on acres, you can squeeze about 1,500 plants on 1 acre. So 1,500 plants at $60 per plant, that makes 1 acre worth $90,000. And that's where people were losing their minds back in the day. And they were growing stuff left and right. They didn't give a damn who was going to buy it. They were just going to grow it and they were going to be ready. Right. So that's how the market, got flooded. And those days have come and gone. The $3 per percent per pound, those days are gone, guys. You'll be lucky to get $1, per percent per pound right now. Some people are just playing a flat rate per pound without the percentage. So you really need to know and understand who your buyer is before you start growing your crop. Okay. And right here, let's say for instance that you didn't catch the males growing, right? You didn't catch the males growing in your field, and some of those plants had more seeds than buds. Now that's going to dilute your CBD percentages for testing. So those percentages could potentially be lower. So that's why it's important, like I was saying before, to eradicate those males and get them out of the way if you're growing for biomass and you're trying to get those better numbers. Okay. And like I said before, according to the 2018 Federal Farm Bill, Delta 9 THC on a dry weight basis is what you should be concerned with. But the USDA came out with some guidance that said, no, we're not concerned about Delta 9. We're concerned about total THC. So we'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a second as well. Okay. Quick pop quiz, right? What happens when THCA decarboxylates? That's right, it converts over to THC, Delta 9 THC, because the A gets metabolized, or the acid gets metabolized, and it converts over to Delta 9. So just wanted to throw that up there as a refresher. Also, guys, be on the lookout, for CBG within your crop, because CBG for the most part is kind of known like the mother molecule, of cannabis, and most of what you grow, it starts out as CBG. And then as the plant continues to mature, here comes your CBD, here comes your THC, here comes your CBN, here comes a little bit of Delta 8 that's in there, all these others, right? As the plant grows. But, within your endocannabinoid system, which I'm not going to talk about today, your endocannabinoid system needs all of these cannabinoids. And the unique thing about CBG, if you're a member of law enforcement, firefighter, first responder, or something like that, and you can't have THC, CBG has the ability to mimic some of the conditions of THC in the body. So you could possibly get some of the relief that THC would provide without getting high at all. So that's a win-win. Not only are you feeling better, able to, stay the tip of the spear with your employer, you're not failing drug tests. Okay. So that's why it's important to know if you've had something that has some CBG in it, because that could potentially, help you out even more. And if you're a farmer and you're growing, right? If you grow a crop and you just so happen to have a little CBG in it, it's going to be worth more than just a crop that has CBD. Okay. So be aware of that. All right. Now, here was something that happened in Nevada in 2019 that basically it really disturbed me when I saw this, because there was a farmer out there who grew a crop. And so right here for Delta 9 THC, it says ND, which means none detected. All right. But because he grew a crop and it had some THCA in it, when that THCA calculation was done, guess what? It put him over on their total THC. It made it 0.67. And he had to destroy that crop because of that. Now, 0.67, that's not even 1%, guys, and he had to destroy that crop and lost a lot of money simply because that wording came out from the USDA about post decarboxylation and total THC, and he was over on total THC. And the crazy thing about it was, this was during the interim rules and not the final rules. So he had to destroy his crop based on that. And by the way, this says report of analysis. This is not a certificate of analysis. So basically, whoever the Department of Ag was using for testing, that's what they went by, and that was a determination that they actually made. So I just like to make sure people know and understand certain things. And once again, when we talk about that potential, that total THC calculation, there it is. It's supposed to be 0.877 times the THCA plus the Delta 9 THC, added together. And that's how they're coming up with that number for total THC. So those of you that are playing around with THCA right now, you're dancing with fire, and it's kind of up to you. But I like to make sure people know. Okay. So this was just the definition, of hemp again. But we've kind of beat that dead horse to the ground, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Now I will talk about some things real quick that are happening in Texas, because this could be applicable to other states. Now, within TDA stands for Texas Department of Agriculture. So in the state of Texas, when you're growing the plant, as it's growing and coming out of the ground, you actually fall under TDA guidance, which is Texas Department of Agriculture. And TDA is only concerned about total THC when the plant is growing. Now, the minute that plant is done growing and you chop it down, you're no longer under TDA rules. Now you fall under DISHES, which stands for Department of Safety Health Services. Okay. So when you transition from TDA, total THC, over to DISHES, DISHES is actually concerned about Delta 9 THC. That's what they're concerned about, is Delta 9 THC. So once again, right, when they're concerned about Delta 9 THC, that doesn't mention THCA. It only mentions Delta 9 THC. So that's why it's a little bit of a loophole right now. So in your individual state, it's important for you to know, who do you fall underneath while that plant is growing? And then once that plant is chopped down and harvested, are you still under the Department of Agriculture, or do you go underneath another entity? And does that other entity have additional rules and regulations for you to go by in terms of finalized products for consumers? So that's just something to be aware of. Okay. Now, under DISHES, there are three things that they are looking for. They're looking for the presence or absence, or the presence and concentration of cannabinoids, the presence and concentration of THC, and also the presence or quality of residual solvents, heavy metals, pesticides, and harmful pathogens. This is stuff that we're about to shove down our throat, guys. So that's why they want to make sure that this material is clear of this stuff before they allow human beings to consume it. Okay. So just be aware of that and know that that's what that's all about. Now, what I showed you previously in terms of a COA was what was called a potency test, where you're just looking for cannabinoids and cannabinoids alone. And that's fine when you're growing the plant on your property. But when that plant is grown and you harvest it before you turn it over to someone, you need to have something done called a full panel. So not only are you looking for cannabinoids, but you're also looking for the presence of heavy metals, pesticides, residual solvents, and things of that nature. And here's what an actual full panel actually looks like. Okay. These are different things that they actually test for, and they look for on a full panel test. Okay. Now, this is something that's really important to me. A little bit of a personal story here. Back when all these Delta 8 products first came out, I went and bought some, and I wanted to try it, right? So I tried it, and man, I'm not gonna lie, Delta 8, I got higher than a freaking kite, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, wow, that was crazy. You know what? I own a lab. Let me test this stuff. Let's see what's really in it, right? So we tested it, did a full panel, and it passed for everything except ethylene glycol. Now, some of you are like, holy shit, ethylene glycol. Some of you are like, what is that? Well, ethylene glycol is basically antifreeze. All right. So there was a gummy that I put in my mouth that had antifreeze in it. You see what I'm saying? That's why it's important to know how to read these COAs and know what's what, because like I said, the way Delta 8 is synthesized, it leaves some stuff to still be desired, some things that have to be addressed. So if you're buying Delta, if you're buying any products, like I said, scan that QR code and actually know what you're about to swallow before you swallow it. Okay. So that's that. Another thing to be aware for you guys that do carts or cartridges. Okay. Basically, this is distillate, in this cartridge. And within that cartridge, there's little metal filament, in there. And there is this concept, you can look it up for yourself. It's called leaching, where if the oil sits against the metal long enough, properties from the metal have a tendency to leach their way into the oil. So that's something you need to be aware of. And also the glass itself, a lot of the glass for these things is produced in China, and they don't have any standards when it comes to glass. So there are properties from the glass that can leach their way into the oil as well. So when you have properties that leach their way into the oils, depending upon how long the oil sits in that cartridge, now when you go to light it and set it on fire, now you could potentially be inhaling heavy metals from the oil. Like I said, go look up what leaching is for yourself, see what it's all about, and make wiser and better decisions, when it comes to cartridges. A lot of these cartridges, they have flavorings. We know what happens when we swallow those flavorings, right? But we don't know what happens when we set them on fire. So that's something that you have to be on the lookout for and aware of as well. Okay. Now, we're moving close to the end now. This is a segment that I just incorporated called I Don't Want to Pee Hot. All right. Now I'm taking it back to my lab days to kind of let you know a few things that I've just kind of known and learned over the years. So when we first go and we actually, have to provide a drug test, and we go and we actually pee in a cup. When we pee in a cup, they actually take that cup and they actually send it to a toxicology laboratory. When it gets to a toxicology laboratory, they take a little aliquot of what you provided them and they put it in a cup that actually looks like this. Now, on this cup, you'll notice there are little strips that say different things. Well, let's turn it to the side and actually see what some of these says. So this first one says THC. Second one says cocaine. This one says amphetamines. That one says opioid. So basically, these are the things from that 10 panel test that I showed you earlier, right? You have PCP, you have barbiturates, you have all of these things. But the only cannabinoid that's on this 10 panel is THC. All right. There isn't a strip for CBD. There's only one for THC. So when you put some urine in this cup, if you have cannabinoids in your system, whether it's CBD, whether it's THC, it could initially test positive for THC if they're using one of these cups. Now, I wasn't able to look up everyone's rules and regulations, but I actually went and looked up a DOD, regulation from the demand reduction program, from the military. And what it actually says, it says this. The second thing that I have highlighted here, it says specimens that screen presumptively positive will be confirmed by chromatography or mass spectrometry. So basically what that means, to make a long story short, is if that cup initially comes up positive, now they have to put it on a machine like this to confirm it. Now, here's the difference, guys. This cup is about a $20, $30 cup. This analyzer is a $750,000 to $800,000 analyzer. So it is way more expensive to run things on here versus one of these cups. Versus one of these cups. Okay. Now, when they run it on this analyzer looks at things from molecular composition level. All right. And this is the first time where they can actually tell the difference between CBD and THC, because CBD and THC are similar in particle size, but they're different in particle shape. And this is the machine that actually makes that definitive diagnosis of whether you had a product with CBD or some type of THC, whether it was THCA, Delta 9, Delta 8, all these others, right? So the best thing for you to do, someone who is concerned about drug testing, is to truly take products that say on the label THC free, verified, and tested, meaning that there are no detectable levels of THC. And it says that on a package, still scan the QR code. Go look at the COA that's specifically for that product and make sure that everything that says THC reads zeros before you ever shove it down your throat, guys. That's how you keep yourself safe, with an employer. So I like to leave you with that. Also, I have some tips, that I like to leave towards the end of my presentation here. If you are a grower, start performing quality checks when you hit the flower phase, meaning when your plants start to flower, just have a potency test done, which is, in my lab, they were $50, a straight potency test. And you can do these on your own before the Department of Agriculture comes out and tests you. This is something that you're doing on your own. It's a proactive measure so that you can monitor those THC levels every week. And as they start to creep up, right? And when they get around 0.2, now it's time for you to notify the Department of Agriculture, hey, I need you guys to get out here and do your thing because I might be getting close to that 0.3 threshold that you're wanting, okay? If it's not a state sample, the results will be released to the owner only. I know that that applies in Texas for sure, okay? But if it's a state sample, not only will the owner get the results back, but the state is actually going to get those results back as well. Perform a full panel test with terpenes before the crop leaves your property. At my lab, when we had our lab open, it was $360 to do that. And basically that is a measure of protection of you for you as a grower, because from the time that when you sell that crop to someone and they go do all kind of crazy stuff with it, if someone dies because of a product that they make from your product, the lawsuits are going to start rolling backwards, right? And then when they get to you, you have the ability to say, that material was clear before it left my field. I don't know what you guys did with it, but y'all need to get the hell out of here with this because I didn't do anything wrong, okay? And also I say here, develop a close working relationship with local law enforcement. Don't be afraid to go. And if you have a legal permit to grow hemp, let them know what you're doing. Let them come out and look at it. Let them come out and smell it, just whatever. Develop a good relationship. And by all means, do not quit your freaking day job. When you first start this, please make sure that you have another source of employment so that you can pay your bills and that you're not relying solely on this crop to be successful before you start making money. Process and manufacturer tips. Make sure the raw materials that you purchase are full panel tested. At my lab, when it was open, that was a $300 because some people will buy distillate from different sources. They will buy isolate from different sources. Make sure that stuff is full panel tested, when you buy it. And also after you get it, make sure you test it as well yourself. That's the way that you make sure you keep yourself safe. I said here, don't try to get away with testing your distillate isolate only and attaching it to a QR code. Like that's cheating, guys. If you manufacture a gummy, but then you only put the COA of the distillate, that's wrong, okay? Because there's more than distillate in that gummy. So everything that you use to manufacture that gummy needs to be tested, before you turn it over to people for consumption. Pay for quality checks during your formulation phase. Like I said, that was a $50 test at my lab when it was open, meaning as you're doing your formulation, excuse me, as you're doing your formulations and you're making your tweaks, have it tested each time to make sure that things are proper and things are right. From a quality check standpoint. Once final formulation is right, that's when you do a formal full panel test because it's way more expensive. Develop a close working relationship with law enforcement. And once again, don't quit your freaking day job, okay? Also, retailer tips. Get trained on reading COAs from an ISO accredited lab. If they charge a fee, pay it. It's important to know how to read these COAs because people are going to be coming into your retail location all the time trying to sell you products to market to the public. So it's important for you to know and understand COAs. If you purchase a product that only has a potency test attached to the QR code, pay for a full panel test yourself per batch change before you start selling to consumers to make sure you're keeping people safe and protecting yourself. If you decide to white label, negotiate full panel testing in your pricing with the manufacturer. Because oftentimes people will do these white labels and they only get a potency test. You need to have full panel, with that. Develop a close relationship with local law enforcement and don't quit your freaking day job because it's going to take time for things to develop and you need to make sure that you pay your bills and that you're being a good citizen until your endeavor takes off in cannabis, okay? I actually have Facebook pages. They're private. I've started them for 26 different states. I have one for Texas. It's close to 1,300 people now. These are different pages that I have in different states. So if you're in Kentucky and you look up Kentucky hemp growers, that's one of mine. Louisiana hemp growers. So these pages are growing. They're gradually getting bigger. They're gaining traction. And like I said, I just like for people to know this information. Be aware of something out there called a hemp blacklist, guys. If you're out there and you're doing bad business, people are probably out there talking about it in private. If you're fortunate enough to get on one of these groups, if you're doing business dealings with someone, search their name in that group before you do business with them and see if they've got a bad reputation. before you start, giving them money and not receiving products. Like I said, look out for yourself at all times. A couple last tips: business education versus street reality. Okay. We got a lot of business educated people that are trying to get involved with cannabis, but they got to learn it from the black market people, the people that were doing it wrong back in the day. So there's got to be an ebb and flow. There's got to be a give and take for the two sides to merge. And if someone is teaching you, shut the front door, right? Learn. You're given two ears and one mouth for a reason. You're supposed to be listening more than you're supposed to be talking, so take the time to listen to what these people are trying to tell you, because once you piss them off, they're not going to want to talk to you anymore. And then you're just going to learn your lessons the hard way. Good manufacturing practice, or GMP. If you don't know about GMP and you're in formulations, you need to know about GMP. So look up good manufacturing practices, what it's all about, and making sure you're going by that. Also, make sure you know what is a broker joker versus a deal maker, right? You get people out there that promise you the world and, I represent such and such. If somebody says they represent, they're a broker, I'm just letting you know, and they may or may not have their stuff together. And if they say, I want to collaborate with you, that is fancy words for, hey man, I don't have any money, but I got this idea. And if we do it together, we might be able to make some money, but I can't promise you anything. So just know what that's about. And also know what escrow is. Escrow is if people are ready to go and they're ready to do deals, they should have money sitting in an escrow account, and they should be show you a proof of funds statement or something, before you actually get started doing things with them. Make sure people have the money before you do things. Whatever method you choose to confirm that they have the money or not, it's up to you. But I'm just saying, if they don't have money sitting in escrow ready to do a deal, don't do a deal, because a lot of people get burned that way, and it's given our industry a black eye, from people that just get disgruntled and they get burnt time and time again. Okay. This is some things, to how to minimize getting hosed, as I put it. If someone wants to do business with you, they should be able to put it on a letter of intent, right? Say, hey, here's who I am. This is what I intend to do if we can make it happen, right? NDAs, those are important, non-disclosure agreements. A contract with some upfront money, that's important. If you're a grower, someone's going to want you to grow things for them, but this isn't like traditional growing where you take all the risk up front. If somebody's not willing to put some money down, you probably don't need to do anything with them. Be leery of tolling agreements, because you can potentially lose a lot. It's like, hey, we don't have money to pay you, but we're going to toll this stuff, meaning we're going to take it and get it processed. And after it's processed, we'll give you a chunk of it back. Be leery of that. Make sure you do your research. Proof of funds, money in escrow, SOPs, standard operating procedures, right? Someone, if they want you to grow something for them, they should have an SOP for how to grow it. If they can't give you an SOP for how to do it, what days to plant, what days to water, what days to provide nutrients, if they can't do that, don't do it. Don't do the deal, because they're just going to find a way to screw you over. Consider a consultant if this is your first grow. Make sure you have someone credible in your corner. Master your ability to be permanently unimpressed by the shiny stuff, right? Learn to see better than you can hear, because there are still a lot of charlatans out there, people that will lie to you and they will sleep good at night. They're not worried about, answering to their maker one day. They're just worried about, getting your money. So please make sure you don't fall for that. Make sure you truly learn to see what's going on in this space. And please stop by a local law enforcement office to introduce yourself and show your permits. If you're doing legitimate business, hey, what's the problem? You shouldn't be. And that will actually save you, a lot of grief and turmoil later on down the line. So those are just a few tips there. This is a video that I like to leave you guys with as well. Once again, this is one that you can look up on YouTube yourself. It is an awesome video. It's called U.S. Cannabis Law Explained. You're talking about some great things there. So I highly recommend you do that, so you'll know why there's only one medication that's approved by the FDA right now to treat childhood seizures and epilepsies, and know why there's such an issue, with the FDA approving, CBD for products. This video does a great job of breaking it down and explaining it to you. So I highly encourage you to do that. So with that being said, guys, like we've already talked about the Helix app, what that's all about. I made sure you knew about that. I gave you the QR code previously for that. Also, this is something that I wanted to make sure, and these dates are off on this because they just updated it, and I'm not sure when people are going to see this, but I know that the dates for NOCO have actually changed, and I'm trying to look those dates up while I am talking to you because I know, yeah, so the dates of NOCO, which is the largest hemp convention in North America, it has been moved. It was going to be in March, but they've changed it now from April the 12th. Uh, it's April the 12th, April the 13th. Yeah, I think it's April the 12th and April the 13th now. If someone wanted to send me an email, I could definitely, give it to you in terms of the updated dates. But this is something that just changed, and I did not catch it in my slide updates. But NOCO happens in Colorado, and it's actually going to be in April now and not March. So just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. And this is a funny thing I like to leave you guys with. The toes you step on today might be connected to the foot in your ass tomorrow. Be kind and move with good intent within this space, because you never know who's going to move up the ladder and how things are going to pan out later on down the line. So we want to be good stewards in this space, and we want to make sure we're doing everyone a proper justice and a proper service. So with that said, guys, once again, this is the last slide. Here's my contact information. If you guys have questions for me, there's my email address there at the bottom. If your questions turn into more detailed things, we got to talk consultation, because everybody wants your information, but nobody wants your invoice. So, definitely, hit me up if you guys need. And I hope you enjoyed this information, and I hope it makes a difference in your endeavors for 2024 and beyond. And stay the course, keep doing good. Good's going to happen. And we're on a great trajectory in a great space at a great time. So y'all take care. See you later. Bye-bye.